welcome back to Berlin, Germany, home of the LEC. Misfits Gaming is the hottest news in the league right now, and the Bunnies are looking to get their 6th win in a row against Vitality, who are subbing in a familiar face to the bot lane. More on this in a few minutes. I'm Machine, and I am joined by Yamato, Cannon, and Ender. Sometimes he casts, sometimes he's forced to stand here with his mustard jacket and talk to me. Good to have you with us. Yamato, of course, joining us. Sounds like tomato, but a whole lot tastier. It is going to be a good one. G2, however, are still in first place with behind them Misfits, Origin, and Fnatic, and they're all chomping at the backsides of them. Misfits started the split 0-2, but have since not dropped a single game, beating G2 yesterday in a huge upset. Now, this was a big game, Ender.
I mean, absolutely no one expected this. Misfits just look so hot right now, and honestly, they blew up the bot lane of G2. Caps, this was Craps through and through here. Resorg hard camped this lane, but it was also just Denik and Bvoy absolutely showing up on the day to punish him.
I think it was always a big question mark for me, because a lot of Misfits' victories were through the top lane, were through Febiven and Razork having monster performances on Gragas. And I was always thinking, this bot lane, what happens if you start to play through them? Will they ever be the big carry, the big stars of the game? And they showed up big time, and they just deleted Caps off the map.
Yeah, they just continue to look better and better and better, and especially I see like the improvement in Denik in that bot lane too. We didn't know a whole lot about him coming into this season, into this split as a rookie player, but I think week on week he has just continued to look better and is now sort of entering the conversation as another really solid support here in Europe.
Last point on this, because we are going to talk more about Misfits later, so focusing our attention on G2 for this final pin. The Sona being picked up, is this, how much of this are we attributing to G2's missteps?
I think the issue is not the Sona per se, because when you pick the Sona, you need to make sure that you have some stronger side lanes going on. And this was the polar opposite of what you want with the Sona. If you pick the Sona, you're supposed to roam into a bot lane that's winning, but that wasn't the case. Sona had nowhere to go. So she was sticking around at the top side, trying to farm, and she was just getting farmed by the Echo.
Look, G2 had 2 supports, but no AD carries, so I don't know what you're supposed to do.
It didn't quite shape up. Was it 0-8? I think he had more deaths in this game, Caps that is, than his entire split so far combined. It's pretty brutal, and that's a good way to kind of summarize just how brutal of a loss it was for G2, and a huge win, of course, for Misfits. And from that huge win or upset, depending on which lens you're using, to a huge change, because after starting the new year, 0-7, Vitality are trying to shake things up. Now, an old EU LCS kid has returned to the LEC city. Do you remember Steelback? He made a strong statement as an AD carry, debuting with the famous 2015 Fnatic. You guys remember this face? You remember this smiling face of Steelback?
I mean, I remember like the old Steelback right on Fnatic, did a lot of great things, and then sort of dipped out of the picture for a lot of people. Came back in as this sort of middle of the pack AD carry, not a lot of hype around this guy. I mean, towards the end of his career was trailing off, but then he sort of went back and readjusted his focus to become a support player, right? Went to the French league playing for LDLC, and I've just heard nothing but good stuff about this guy since.
So I worked with Steelback, in his final, or not final, it's obviously not the final. The last year that he played in the LEC, was the AD carry. It was kind of underwhelming, the last performance. This was in Vitality. So obviously I took in the whole Giants roster. Steelback went into the support adventure together with Joko, and I think it's always so impressive when a player is able to reinvent himself, because sometimes when players get pushed down once, they don't make that resurgence, and Steelback has been doing super well in the LDLC and in Vitality Academy as well, and in general I think the super role is where he belongs.
Yeah, and primarily he's been making a name for himself on these like roaming style supports too. So when you saw Fnatic, or when you saw Steelback in the past, it was going to a side lane and farm for a long time. Now it's going to be about really putting an impact across other lanes.
And actually, from Law's help, we have managed to get some extra scouting reports in from the French leagues. He's been playing mostly engage, and you said roaming support, such as Rakan, we've seen Braum, Thresh, Galio, and Nautilus. So some things to keep our eyes out for. Transitioning from AD carry to support, we've seen a lot of different players swapping roles as such, but it's exciting to see this AD carry to support transition in particular. Same lane, very different role, and I'm sure he knows what to expect from Comp, given their history together.
Yeah, I mean, like, what other ADCs have swapped to support? Like, way back to the old days.
Star and Afro.
It's like all those boomer ADCs, they're like, well, I'm washed up, don't have the hands anymore.
Get out of here. Support changes the game, you know that. This bloody Rek'Sai main. Of course he is.
What can I say?
I just think, supports in general, you know, when AD carry is a very mechanically intensive role, they transfer the knowledge of the lane, which is usually the most difficult part, and then support just flows easily into that.
Yeah, and something else to consider as well is not only that, but Sakin and Skeens being rookies, Steelback alongside with Kabashard now, could be the comfort zone that these two kids need to gain confidence. Again, Vitality are in crisis mode, facing off against Misfits today, and we'll see if Steelback can be that difference maker. We'll cross our fingers and toes, and we'll check in with that later. But today, Steelback will get his first test on a new patch. It's going to be 10.3. We saw some of the changes yesterday in action. What was catching your eye most, fellas? We brought this up, actually a different graphic, excuse me, recapping 10.3. This is what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I think the first thing I jumped to is the new champions. We sort of saw on this patch Ezreal Yuumi as being that high priority, especially early on in the day as a bot lane duo, was a bit surprising. Of course, Ezreal has gotten some buffs recently. Yuumi also got buffs on patch 10.3, and this duo, if left to their own devices, can try to take over the game due to their poke and ability to chase down the opposition.
I think Ezreal Yuumi can be very obnoxious. I don't know what happened in scrims because everyone kind of locked it in. We didn't see the craziest performances from these champions. We had the Excel game where they won and they kind of bounced back. I think in general it's going to be a staple across all leagues. The one thing that I want to point out while we're talking about the bot lane, I expect to see more Zayaraka. I'm on the Zayaraka hype train, and I think this is going to be the classic kind of bot lane that we saw last year when we saw Ezreal Yuumi traded for Zayarakan. This is the direction we're heading in.
It's sort of like the hard engage versus like the potential scaling sort of slippery nature of the Ezreal Yuumi, which then takes me into the jungle too, because you have hard engage in the Sejuani on one side who got direct buffs, and then Karthus also with his scaling and ability to become a monster later in the game, thanks to not direct changes to him, but actually the EXP buffs in the jungle have enabled him to sort of come in and dominate in a lot of games.
Is it just the EXP buffs that's put Karthus in the jungle more?
I think there's also the fact that since Sejuani is on the board, you know, Karthus is a wonderful matchup into the Sejuani. Karthus was most often picked into these tank picks because you know that Karthus is not going to get punished. He's going to farm those jungle camps as well. This is a very interesting nature of how one champion can change the whole draft, because Sejuani all of a sudden enables so many more top laners. Maybe we'll see some Renekton, maybe some Camille mid again, because they love that synergy with that E stun that Sejuani has.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like Sejuani coming in, Karthus obviously going to be very comfortable in that matchup, but I also think that Karthus can be played into pretty much anything right now. There's very clear windows where you need to punish him towards the end of his first and second clear, but his single target, like DPS, is really, really high, so unless you build a comp and play a very aggressive style to try and shut him down early, this guy is going to be able to free farm and become a menace later on. And because he's AP, it's yet another AP jungler you can add to the pool that frees up a lot of these physical damage mids.
Dumb question, what else is in the AP jungler pool other than Elise?
Well, we have Gragas right now is the big one. Elise,
Sejuani
as
now,
you mentioned.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, Sejuani, I wouldn't give her the full magic damage.
It's Mercury
count.
threads.
Yeah,
Mercury
fair
threads.
enough, fair enough.
Isn't it treads?
Talia, maybe. Threads.
Oh
Shoes.
no, just let me try and correct you. Let me be right about something about League of Legends.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you very much. I could be wrong.
You've got the shoe game, so we'll let you have it.
Oh, danke schön. But it wasn't, of course, all of the song and dance for the champs that were being picked. Quite a different story for some of the others. Because while new champions make it to the Rift, one rogue assassin has left the world of Runeterra. Let's hope it's a while until we see her again. I'm actually impressed it was Ender not making the first noise. Now it's a moment of silence, sorry. A respectful silence for the loss of Akali. Rest in peace. Yes, it does seem like she's been gutted. A bit of a joke, perhaps, but guys, Akali, we're not going to see her, right? She's full on in the coffin. They're already shoveling on the dirt.
Maybe in the top lane.
Okay.
Maybe, just maybe. Mid lane is a bit rougher. I think the Q change is too rough because they nerfed her Q on the energy to compensate for the pressures of mine business. So now you're really relying on getting kills, but you're not going to get kills because you're just Akali.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see any Akali on 10-3. I think a lot of people right now, sentiment is like at an all-time low.
Sure.
People hated her before, now they're like, we hate her and she's bad. But I think as people get some more time to learn her, maybe we could see her here and there.
Or a new Prestige Edition skin, maybe.
God damn it. Okay, but what fills the void then? Akali was permabanned for the, 3 of the 4 days I'm here. What's happening on the 4th?
I guess the Soraka.
Soraka fills that void.
Banned that on red side, yeah.
That's like
Soraka, we've seen a lot of Cinder bans too, right? Ever since she got re-enabled, like you can flex her between mid lane and bot lane. So I think those are both really solid bans at the moment.
Okay, keep our eyes on that. Earlier this week, though, Drakos and Yamato discussed the top players in every single position on the Euphoria podcast. So why don't we peel our ears back and take a listen?
We're talking today specifically about talent density, or the number of truly top players that we have in each role. And I think it's appropriate that we start with mid lane, where I think we both have kind of strong opinions about whether or not the moniker EU mid really sticks around today.
I think it is like super clear, like Perks, I think is better than anyone, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Nemesis and Nuktak, and then it's kind of a question mark ping, you know?
Yep.
I know that, the class of rookies that we had last year, everyone was excited about it, but I always held my reservations because, partially because I heard Jizuki's opinion on them all the time.
Yep.
This guy is so bad. This guy is so bad. I'm not going to mention any names. Nevertheless, it was the Akali curse, is what I like to call it.
Mid was so broken last year.
Yeah. Silas, Akali.
Silas, like you couldn't not look good. If your team was winning the game and you were playing one of those champions, every game you played was a montage. You listed top 3, but even for me, I would even question that because for me, it's like Perks, Caps are still in my eyes the 2 best mid laners. Like regardless of what role they're playing, like no one can. If anyone thinks that Caps can't come right back to mid lane and beat every other mid laner in our league, I think they're trolling.
Yeah.
And after that, I think it's a pretty big drop off. Like Perks, Nemesis is there. Right, I think like maybe 3, maybe 2, and then after that it's kind of like Like you could put Nukeduck there. You could make an argument for Larson. Like Seiken has had some pretty rough games. Mickey's kind of all over the place. Humanoid dies all the time. Abadage also dying a ton, but like I don't think it's fair to look at any individual on Schalke.
It is a big gap from the top. My name is Yamato, and I can speak without moving my mouth. Incredible. I don't know how he does that.
Impressive.
How does he do it? And these impressions are just seamless. But either way, we decided to explore the players that won't be leading the ranks anytime soon. Have some fun with the bottom. That's what I tried to do on Valentine's. Joking, of course. Yamato and Ender have picked out their all-star team from the bottom 3. Why don't we check it out? So you guys have picked and pulled. I do think I have to put my thinking cap on, and you guys can explain what's going on here.
Look, we've got 2 top laners, and I think we're going to be very open about this. When we were looking at like trying to build like sort of the best out of the 3 worst teams, like mid lane pool was a big question for us. Like you were talking about it a little bit in Euphoria, but honestly, I think if you tried to put CHK in mid lane, you would actually be pretty solid.
Yeah. I think also with the fact that, I have a lot of inside information on Cabo, and the champions he plays, like Lucian, Jace, those are easily playable in mid lane. Even the Aatrox, why not? We've seen some games on Aatrox.
Yeah.
The one that deserves to be there. He's been doing super well in the 1v1, so it was hard to not put him there in comparison to the other mid laners in the bottom 3.
For sure. I'm also like, Cabochard, like, he tries to carry out of top lane, but he just can't.
Put him in mid.
Put him in mid, so he's in the center of the map, and this guy could actually do a lot. I also think we sort of slotted in to the jungle as well. I would put Trick in there next to these 2 guys as sort of, another veteran mind here to bring the brains to the operation in this team and sort of try to build a solid roster.
So who was your other candidate that could have fit that top lane description then? You ended up with Arome, but who else was kind of potentially contesting for that within this bottom 3? Sacre. Admittedly, it's
Who's
slim
the
pickings.
third top laner? It's Sacre. We don't need Norn one trick here,
we
man.
don't need Ornn.
I'm sorry, Sacre. This is
The other top laner was Cabochard, but we put him in mid lane.
He's in mid. That's it.
Yes,
That makes
yes.
perfect sense. Thank
Yeah.
you. Oh, that was a trick question. But so taking a look at that, in the jungle, you're rocking Trick. Best of the bunch.
Yes, I think so. Like, obviously, there's been some criticism levied at Trick, but you look at
From
sort
you.
of his, I mean, from me, yeah. And like, look, I've criticized how he plays the game a lot on the mechanical level, and I think those problems do still exist. But if you actually look at the mind of this guy and how he's come into a lot of different teams and just upgraded them like cerebrally, almost immediately, he's going to have high value.
And you can't discredit experience. Experience, it speaks for itself. But the bot lane, I imagine you can speak to that.
Yeah, I think Crownshot has been the shining star of SK. In the AD carry role, you don't have that much agency, but if you set up for it with these team compositions that SK has been drafting, you get those pop-off moments. I think Crownshot has been playing very, very solid, very smart all around. I don't see any like big kind of eye-popping mistakes that would
no
make
like
me want
glaring
to.
weaknesses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This guy's sort of got a little bit of everything, and like we were pretty excited to see him in the LEC in 2019. Had a lot of good performances down there in the bottom lane, and I hope we get to see more out of him. Unfortunately, I think it's really hard to look like great as an AD carry on a lower tier team because you need time to get items to ramp up and then look really solid.
You could say you could be forgiven for having a bad time as an AD carry. Thank you very much.
Oh my God!
4D chess.
Yes.
I'm playing 6D backgammon.
You're absolutely on
Smell-o-vision,
fire today.
all the
It's
senses.
insane.
I'm out of this
we
one.
also have to address Steelback.
Yes, of course.
As support.
So
right?
he hasn't
Like,
played
that's
a
big
game,
change.
right, Ender?
He hasn't played a game yet in 2020 on the LEC stage, but I've watched a lot of games. I've talked to Lore a lot about him too and how he's sort of developed as a support player in the French scene. And honestly, I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table, and I'm not really impressed with the other support options we have.
I think if you are supposed to place bets, which is kind of what we're doing here with the all-star of the
yeah.
bottom three, I think that's where you put your money right now with what we've been showcased, hoping that Steelback shows us something better.
Right. Well, we will cross our fingers and toes and, of course, get the answers today as he plays his first game. So keep your eyes on Vitality later. Final question on this one, then. You've built a dream team of the dregs of the standings. How do they place? Do you believe they could outplace some of the teams they're coming from?
Honestly, like with Cabo in mid lane, I'm really excited about this idea. It's borderline that I want Vitality to do it. Because Cabo
Let's
Shop
make
mid
the
lane,
team. He's so sold.
I've seen so many 1v1s between Jizuke and Cabo does super well. You know, he can use some top lane spice in that mid lane, get some advantages and do well because he's a leader.
And
And
he'll
from
actually
mid,
get
it's
support
easier.
from mid lane.
I think playoffs team right here, man. Cabo mid
I'm
lane.
going to say this would be a 6th to 8th team. They have the potential for playoffs. It's not super likely, but could happen.
Doable. Okay, awesome. Well, that concludes that. And for the LEC teams, the smallest detail can be the difference in their effort to climb up in the standings. In the early game between Rogue and Mad Lions last week, we saw a clear example of this and what Frost likes to call the butterfly effect.
Mad Lions forced a delayed invade with Braum to disrupt the Jarvan versus Gragas matchup to secure Shadow more favorable early pathing. This invade forces Inspired to start on his blue buff on the top side of the map. Inspired goes for a full top side clear before resetting and running towards bot to get back on track to contest Shadow's Gragas. And this is where the butterfly effect takes over. Rewind. During the initial delayed invade, Larson takes 3 auto attacks from the red buff, forcing him to pop one of his 3 corrupting pots while heading into lane. Humanoid, taking virtually no damage in the exchange, retains all 3 of his corrupting pots, giving Humanoid an extra 125 health and 75 mana to play in lane. Larson starts with Lissandra's Ring of Frost, her W, which allows him to activate his Aftershock Keystone. In the LeBlanc matchup, Lissandra wants to trade her Ring of Frost damage against LeBlanc's Distortion damage, using her Aftershock to win the trade. Humanoid knows this, Larson knows this, so level 1 is an auto-attack standoff with Larson quick draws another Corrupting Pot charge, trying to use the damage amplifier on his auto-attacks. Now, it's 3 Corrupting stacks to 1 in favor for Humanoid. As the lane phase plays out, Humanoid should actually be taking much more aggressive trades to abuse his Corrupting stack advantage. But between Larson's conservative play and Miss LeBlanc chains, Humanoid doesn't get to abuse his advantage as heavily as possible. At 340, timed with Inspired's invade on enemy blue, Larson chooses to back and uses teleport to return to lane. At this buy, Larson can afford a Dark Seal and boots, but obviously not the most ideal shopping trip. This lane is actually in a great wave state for Larson. By having refreshed charges on his Corrupting Pot, Larson can look to trade aggressively with Humanoid if LeBlanc tries to contest the freeze, and either deny Humanoid CS or take heavy trades to also force Humanoid to back and even up the teleports. But then Larssen makes a critical judgment error. He leaves his lane to join his team's already won skirmish in the jungle, taking massive damage in the process. Knowing that LeBlanc is going to be backing for her buy, Larssen returns to his wave and attempt to hard push and get his wave to bounce off the enemy tower. And then LeBlanc teleport comes in. At this point, Larssen has to reset to refresh resources for lane trades after his disastrous jungle rotation. His attempted shove works, but a greedy recall position has him interrupted and gives Humanoid the opportunity to freeze. That back position ends up getting Inspired killed. Larssen can't approach the wave. He calls for his jungler to bail him out, and as Inspired shows up to correct Larssen's mistake, they're ganked in a 2v2 matchup where Larssen doesn't have any mana and no way to assist Inspired. This back timer nets Larssen a Null Cloak and Control Ward, but the biggest issue is that he'll struggle to compete with LeBlanc's wave pushing ability without access to AP or mana itemization. This directly impacts Rogue's ability to control the map, as it'll likely be that LeBlanc can move to every play first, which is best illustrated when the Herald swap comes to play. Unable to compete for push priority, Larssen spends his portion of the lane phase dodging damage and catching waves. Here, Finn is actually already in rotation to swap bottom while Han Sama and Vander head top, but Finn reroutes to mid to cover and help Larssen push his lane. Larssen does need gold badly, but he overreaches here when he gets not just the one, but two incoming waves. This means that Larssen is now behind the incoming Herald fight, showing up too late to properly contest the Herald, but just in time to set up with Finn's Wombo combo to save the day. This delay is an echo of the previous poor back timers from Larssen over the course of the lane phase, something that started when Mad Lions forced the initial invade and required Larssen to be ready to fight on map when Inspired went to correct that invade, and then was worsened by Larssen's own lane decisions. This game was decided by the smallest of details, and today, in our match of the week, the rookies of Mad Lions can't afford to make any mistakes.
This week's match of the week is Mad Lions versus Fnatic. We get to see Rekkles facing a younger mirror of himself.
So first I heard about Rekkles when I was around 13, and I was always like, ooh, this guy is so cool.
When I came in 2014, I felt like I was so much hungrier than everyone else.
We really want to get to Worlds this year, and I want to prove myself.
I get more pentakills, of course.
And now I'm playing against him.
Flash in the melee range of an Aatrox. Here comes a big roll of time. That's a play with style. Well done, Carzzy. Oh, Carzzy! Suplex back. That is the price of free.
I like playing on a big stage, and like I int and I start laughing because I know everyone sees it and everyone flames me.
For Carzzy, it's about proving that he can compete with the best, but for Rekkles, it's about showing the world that he still has the skill and ability to sit on top.
It's a mistake if I don't try my absolute best every day, because otherwise I'll be overtaken, like most of the old schoolers now are. I want to be like the outlier who just keeps on performing every year.
Clean hook comes in from Hellsang on the backup coming through the Ignite, taking down first blood from Fnatic. Gibbons in trouble. He wanted the 2v2, but he's not going to get it. And what's going to land on him? From EpicSkillshot to play League of Legends.
I think he's working very hard. I also think that he still has the drive to be the best.
Rekkles gets a double! He's looking at escape for more! That's a triple! Rogers on the card!
I think we will see him for a long time.
We've just taken a look at the Baron, down to 50%. The equalizer goes out. There's another! That's a golden shadow. He comes down dead.
Someone like Carzzy, who's born 2002, if I don't have the same hunger as I did in 2014, which he does now naturally, he will probably have it in my number, and I obviously don't want that to happen.
My goal is to beat Rekkles because then I will get the Rookie of the Split, most likely.
Believe it or not, this is the matchup to help determine second place. The winner of this will cement themselves in Europe after week 4.
Said I'm fired up. I'm sorry your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. Came from the ashes, I rise up.
A lineup filled with rookies face off against the most winning team in LEC history. This is our Alienware match of the week. Carzzy and Rekkles behind us, very different stories, but running in a parallel direction. That's how words work.
Yeah, just like 8 years separated, pretty much, right? And Carzzy's been Carzzy's been very outspoken about how he has always idolized Rekkles. So this is going to be a really important match to him.
I mean, the fact that we've got to this stage in esports where you have players who have got such a long tenure in history, and they're talking about, you know, wanting to be the outlier, wanting to outlast the old schoolers. That we're seeing this in multiple games at the same time now. It's starting to happen where the guys that were the gods of the game are now, you know, either you have to work harder than everyone else to keep up, or, you know, that experience is only going to carry you so far. Rekkles is proving that he can maintain, can keep up, and he is achieving his goals at the moment of being the exception to the rule.
It's like the man has figured it out. You know, it's crazy that last year it was honestly his, you know, greatest year in terms of his individual level. And I don't feel like that's stopping anytime soon. The criticism of the past of Rekkles was, oh, maybe 5 years ago he was too safe or whatever, but this is all bullshit, you know? And now, in terms of his champion pool, he only plays Tristana, Sivir. No. He's got the Garen in the pocket, you know, got some Karma in there too.
All those exciting
plays the
picks
Senna
that we love to see.
Senna and Aphelios as well. He's there to win, not to make you feel excited. Huh?
I heard about Garen Yumi. Yeah, that was a thing, right?
It's coming back.
Oh, it is?
It's coming back, baby.
Can't wait. Fnatic and Mad Lions are closing out the week later tonight, but before that, Excel Esports and Origin do look to solidify themselves as top contenders. If you want to get a player's perspective on that matchup, Perks is joining Quickshot and Ender for picks and bans, as well as the early game, so you don't want to miss that at all. Coming up, of course, first, you can see Misfits, the Bunnies, will be taking on the Vitality Bumblebee, and for this game, our eyes are on the surprise. It's the surprise team of the spring split, looking to secure their 6th win in a row. They're on a run, 0-2, 6-2, Misfits. Quite the development.
Yeah, they're for sure the hottest team in the LEC right now.
So hot right now.
So hot right now. But really, like, if you had told me about this matchup on week 1, day 1, I would have said, oh yeah, this looks pretty close, right? Misfits came in, they didn't look all that great, but since then they have been on an absolute tear, and I think they have just continued to level up. Individual players on this team step up higher, and I think a huge focus for me has to be the bottom lane, right? With B-Voy and Denick, because in week 1, B-Voy was down like 25 CS at 15 minutes. Like, it was not a good look, but week on week, they have gotten better and better. And yesterday, they destroyed Caps in the bot lane.
Yeah, and we spoke to Febervan at PGL just yesterday as well, and it seemed that the general sentiment in the Misfits camp is that they now are starting to believe that they can do it. In fact, you can see the words, very strong words from the man himself. I think we can contest for finals. How does that land on your ears, Yamato?
I think when we look at Febervan's individual performance so far, he's definitely in contention for being top 2 in the mid lane role. Definitely. But Misfits as a whole, I think it's too soon to say, because sure, after you beat G2, you feel fantastic, but I need to be the one mentioning that G2 oinked around big time. Caps, Craps, Yasuo into this draft, there was a lot of question marks that were always fine for G2 because they managed to pull through. So I credit Misfits for the discipline, but at the same time, it is time to celebrate, but not to run away too far with the hype train.
Is it time for me to ask, do we see an Echo ban here? You know, I mean, this Razork performance yesterday versus G2, was that enough convincing for you?
So, Razork, obviously a phenomenal Echo player. You hear about all his solo queue accolades and whatnot, 80% win rate over 40 games. That's all stunning. I don't think we'll see an Echo ban, at least not in the first rotation. Maybe if they haven't locked in a jungler's second phase, we could see it thrown his way. But with only 1 performance under his belt, even though it was a solid one, I don't think teams are going to be fearing the Echo quite yet. But that does leave room for him to prove to people that, yes,
give us
we'll
again.
ban it, or I'll just keep picking it.
I think the biggest part that's so interesting about Echo for me is that I think the matchup into, for example, like a Karthus that is so powerful right now, I think that's something that definitely is playable, and maybe that's where we might see Echo show up again.
Okay, so keep our eyes on that one. Now, the bot lane has been stepping up as well, and that's where our analysts actually, your attention was drawn. Yes, Razork has 8-9 kills on Echo, but your eyes were drawn to the bot lane. Why was that?
Yeah, well, I mean, because they killed Caps like 8 times in one single game, right? And I sort of touched on it earlier, but it is that growth for the bot lane, because I was almost ready to throw in the towel for this bot lane after week 1. Week 2 was just like slightly better, but I do genuinely believe that this bot lane is continuing to level up and starting to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, for sure. Don't let this graph confuse you, because this should be great. This draft should burn somewhere, because this was a thing of beauty. Zyra Khan, I think, is always the true test of skill for bot lanes, and they showed up big time on Zyra Khan, so I'm happy with the trajectory that Misfits is heading in.
Okay, and just to kind of bring ourselves back on the track, we are going to be getting into the draft very shortly, but expectations for this game, Vitality, do they, you know, we're praising Misfits, definitely 100% the hottest team in the LEC, love that tag. Do Vitality stand a chance? Can they be the resistance? Can they be the humbling presence against a team like Misfits?
I think Vitality has shown a lot of promise, but always there's something different that just tears them down. Either it's a terrible dive or something. I want them to simplify. Play through one side all over and over because they need to put those wins on the board.
They certainly do.
And use Steelback.
Use him. That's right. It's time to see what Steelback can do. There's a new wave hitting the LEC, and for Misfits, this could just be the beginning of something bigger. Let's see if they can take down Vitality.
Thank you very much, Machine. We are going to jump on into picks and bans very rapidly here, I believe, as we get on